It's the 9th of July, and this is your News Bite brought to you by eNCA.com. I'm Marcel Gordon, and in your news today, mass shootings in Cape Town leave 7 dead. President Cyril Ramaphosa will meet with French President Emmanuel Macron this weekend, and the World Cup quarters are upon us. Western Cape Police are investigating 2 mass shootings that left 7 dead and 5 injured in Tafelsig, Mitchells Plain and Philippi East on Wednesday night. In Mitchells Plain, armed suspects opened fire on 5 men outside a tuck shop. 3, aged 18, 19 and 51, died at the scene. 2 others were hospitalized. Shortly after, police responded to a shooting at a home in Marcus Garvey in Philippi East, where 7 people were shot and 3 were hospitalized. Authorities have increased police deployments in the affected areas. Meanwhile, in Gauteng, 3 suspects in the deadly Cleveland mass shooting returned to the Joburg Magistrates Court to seek bail. They face 13 murder and 14 attempted murder charges after gunmen allegedly opened fire at Jumpers Informal Settlement in Joburg last month, killing 13 people. At their last appearance, the accused denied confessing, claiming police assaulted them and forced them to sign statements. The state is expected to oppose bail as the case unfolds. Conditions outside the Malawian embassy in Pretoria are becoming increasingly dire. Hundreds of people, including babies, pregnant women and the elderly, are still sheltering in freezing temperatures and unsanitary conditions. Human rights activist Mariam Jooma-Carikci says the crisis is both heartbreaking and avoidable. She argues that the treatment of those seeking help as a result of being threatened by protesters like the March and March movement raises serious questions about the humanity and accountability.
First of all, I think as a South African, it's deeply tragic and heartbreaking to be on the side of the oppressor at the moment. The main concern that I have right now is that people who have been serving this country, documented or undocumented in whatever capacity, who have been looking for refuge, have come to their own government, to their own High Commission for safety. And unfortunately, the conditions that they have been received with are appalling. So we were on site from the 28th of June, and found out that people had been sleeping outside here, sleeping on the cement with, its children, babies, pregnant women from the 26th, which was the Friday, the 26th.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has extended the deadline for the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The commission will now submit its final report on the 16th of November instead of the 31st of August. The evidence deadline is the 2nd of October. Meanwhile, at the commission today, inconsistent standards in the public service was in the spotlight with the testimony of anti-corruption expert Dr. Alberto Skuman, who took a closer look at flaws in the asset disclosure regime and possible reforms for them. He says the reality is that there are many different disclosure frameworks.
Members of Parliament have a distinct framework where they are required to disclose their interests. The Executive has a separate framework in terms of the Executive Ethics Act. The Judiciary has a separate framework and requirements in terms of the Judicial Services Commission Act. Local government has a different framework, both for councillors as well as officials within local government administration. And so effectively what happens is that you have inconsistent standards across the board, that some people are held to higher standards maybe, others are required to disclose less, or their disclosure forms are not publicly available. And the effect of this, I think, is that both that you have inconsistent standards, but also that the kind of capacity that one needs to have a functional system of verification and follow-up investigations is effectively dispersed across all of these various institutions. And it leads to a lot of inefficiencies. And part of the issue is when we talk about investigations, one of the clear challenges that we know that we have, that there is in South Africa, is around investigative capacity.
At the same time, the Commission's recommendations task team has arrested 4 suspects during a takedown operation in various parts of Johannesburg. Police say the suspects include current and former employees of the Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Municipality. Elsewhere, police had ordered former Ekurhuleni city manager Imogen Mashazi to report to the police. National Treasury says withholding funds from 69 municipalities countrywide will improve rather than negatively affect service delivery. It's been outlining why it decided to freeze the funds of struggling municipalities, including some of the country's biggest metros, like the city of Joburg. Treasury's Ogalaletse Ngarakwe confirmed that they withheld a total of 13.5 billion rand out of the overall budget of 110 billion shared amongst municipalities. eNCA's Sipa Madlanga takes a closer look and also hears from the Local Government Association CEO Sithole Mbanga.
Treasury has been quick to dismiss concerns that withholding funds for municipalities could negatively affect the provision of basic services.
And we're not expecting it to impact service delivery because, as you would know, majority of the funding at local government level, they raise it from own revenue.
The South African Local Government Association says municipal funding models need to be re-looked at.
Part and parcel of protecting municipalities means that we have to tell the story of local government. And currently, what municipalities are effectively saying, they are saying the current formula with which we are supporting municipalities is not working. I mean, we are currently securing about 9.5% from national fiscals as municipalities, all of us. And yet we are responsible for no less than 40% of the total amount of services that the entirety of the state provides.
National Treasury says it hopes councils elected after the 4 November local government polls will clamp down on unfunded budgets.
Meanwhile, Business Leadership South Africa has welcomed Treasury's decision to withhold those funds. CEO Busisiwe Mavuso says this move will improve accountability.
They hire these people knowing well that they are incompetent. They hire these people knowing very well that they don't have the right experience. They don't have the right skill set. They hire these people as a result of cadre deployment. When you look at what is happening, for instance, in the city of Joburg over the last 10 years, their employees have probably maybe grown by more than 100%. And yet, service delivery has gone the other way. So what is the point of bringing in so many people if the service that you're supposed to be providing is actually going to decline? So you are seeing municipalities now becoming employment agencies. They are being set up to actually provide, jobs for friends. So it's not really a question of a lack of skills. It's a question of a failure of leadership. Mayors are failing. Municipal managers are failing. This is a system of, making sure that you extend favors, to your friends.
Hopes for lower farming input costs are fading as renewed conflict in the Middle East raises concerns about shipping disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. Fuel and fertiliser account for roughly half of field crop production costs, making farmers particularly vulnerable at a time when commodity prices remain under pressure. The sector is also monitoring the potential impact of the El Niño weather pattern. Here's AgriBiz's chief economist, Wandile Sihlobo.
For the South African farming sector, the one thing that we are watching is what will be the reaction of the fertilizer and the fuel prices to some of these disruptions. Because, of course, as long as there is some form of a disruption on the movements of ships in the Strait of Hormuz, that presents some difficulties or some upside pressures on the fertilizer and the fuel prices. And what will be important to us is particularly closer to the start of October, because that is where a number of farmers will be placing their orders for fertilizer as well as for their fuel access, which they use during their planting period. All of these risks, they are happening and coming at a time where there's also another additional one, which is the likely El Niño.
In other news we're keeping an eye on, more than 200 suspected illegal miners arrested during an Operation Prosper raid at the Losberg Kloof mine were set to appear in Westonaria's magistrates court. Most of those arrested are nationals from Lesotho, Mozambique and Zimbabwe, along with some South Africans. Police also seized equipment used for illegal mining, as well as firearms and ammunition. And President Cyril Ramaphosa will undertake an official visit to France this weekend. He's doing so on the invite from the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, also known as UNESCO, with whom he will co-chair high-level engagements in Paris. He'll also have a bilateral meeting with President Emmanuel Macron, who's also invited Ramaphosa for dinner on Friday night. Must be nice. On to the world of sports now. While the drama around the contentious round of 16 match between Argentina and Egypt continues to simmer, the World Cup quarterfinals gets underway on Thursday night, with 2018 champions France taking on Morocco, the last African team left in the competition. The clash between the Atlas Lions and Les Bleus is a repeat of the 2022 World Cup semi-final in Qatar, where France claimed a 2-0 victory. Here's Morocco forward Brahim Diaz.
They are brilliant players, also a brilliant person, but tomorrow we are rival, and we both, everyone want to win, and this is the most important. I trust my team. I know we will do a big game, and that's all I can say.
South Africa plays Scotland at Loftus on Saturday, their second Nations Championship match after their opening win over England. Springbok prop Wilco Louw says competing in the URC has played a key role in preparing the Boks for the demands of Test rugby, especially against Northern Hemisphere competition.
The URC is an incredible competition, and I think it's really close. Most games to Test level, if you take the URC final, it was a proper game, and definitely, yeah, obviously, one knows the boys, but yeah, it's we focus on ourselves and we focus on what we want to achieve on Saturday, whether it's in the scrum or with the high balls or whatever facet of the game. So yeah, I think we focus on ourselves and what we want to do, and obviously it's good to play them there and at Loftus. Obviously we've had results go with us and against us on both pitches. So. But definitely it is a good opportunity to play them there and to scrum against the boys we're going to play against this weekend.
And that's how we wrap today's News Bite. For developments in these and more, keep an eye on eNCA.com and DSTV channel 403.